Welcome, travelers. The lights are dimming, but the story remains. Tonight, we drift across the broken lands of Rayclast, where ruin sleeps beneath every root, and the wind speaks in the voice of ash. This is not a timeline. It is a retelling, shaped from truth, but spoken like legend. The night is long, the fire is low. Let us begin. Salt-stung air prickled the exile's skin before his eyes opened. Waking came not like a scream, but a tide, slow, insistent, inevitable. Waves pushed at his ribs with the warmth of blood, the black surf washing against a shore thick with shipwrecked marrow. Above, gulls wheeled like wraiths, their cries mingling with the groan of distant timbers collapsing into the sand. The Withered Pride was gone, shattered on Rayclast's reef teeth. Only splinters and a figure remained. The man stirred. A chain hung from his ankle like a tail, its shackle rusted but closed. His name? He tried to speak it. The word drowned in salt. They had called him many things in Oriath, but none with mercy. Now, the tide offered no name, only rebirth. Around him, the shore slumped under centuries of carrion tides. Bones littered the rocks, some human, others older, less honest. Each relic whispered of the Night Mother Sin, myth, god, or curse, whose name the drowned once chanted as they sank. Above the cliffs, a tower pulsed faintly green. No beacon, no warning, just light and hunger. The exile pushed upright. Blood matted his scalp. His palms were raw. One hand found a piece of driftwood buried in kelp, splintered, knotted, heavy at one end. A cudgel made not for survival, but for sentence. Around its base, barnacles formed a spiral. He took it without reverence. As he stepped inland, gulls scattered, their wings beating out a dirge. Footprints, his own, began a path up the beach. The sand sucked at his heels, reluctant to let him go. Behind, the wreck bled pitch into the tide. A checkpoint stone jutted from the sand, half buried, inscribed in a tongue he once feared to learn. Sin thrives where penance fails. The tower pulsed again. A howl, wet, long, impossibly deep, rose from the direction of its light. The exile didn't flinch. He walked. The cliffs curled around a hollow in the coast like a broken jaw, and from the hollow's depths rose the stench of iron and regret. The exile crouched behind a split boulder, the driftwood cudgel pressed flat to his thigh. Beneath him, the path narrowed into darkness. Arched stones slick with moss, ancient sigils clawed into the wall by chained fingers. Torchlight flickered from within. A procession of shadows moved across the far wall, distorted by flame and pain. Each groan from the depths echoed like it remembered his name. This was the place the shore spoke of, the prison. Blood rust stained the metal gates, and beyond them, chains murmured across stone. No guard posted, no sign of welcome, yet the exile felt watched, known. The fetters called to their kin still locked around his ankle. He moved low, barefoot on slick stone, past rusted portcullises flanked by broken statues. A mural half sunk in grime revealed a figure he dimly recalled. Brutus, the warden, once human, betrayer of none, executioner of all. The church said he wept as he slew, the prison said he screamed. A clang broke the silence, a door slamming somewhere below. The exile descended. Each step revealed more of Rayclast's old breath. bones tucked into niches, scraps of faded scripture carved into cell walls. The deeper he went, the warmer the air became, like a mouth breathing through stone. Torch smoke swirled into serpents along the corridor. Footfalls crunched glass and teeth. Ahead, the hallway split. To the left, a door weeping rust, something large breathing behind it. To the right, voices, frantic whispers in a language he did not know but somehow understood. One phrase repeated, desperate and reverent. He remembers the cuts. He turned left. The door gave way under the cudgel's push. Inside, iron, everywhere. Staples the size of axes, pinned carcasses to the walls. Chains swayed without wind. A throne of bones rose at the room's center, and on it, a shape, huge, twisted. It had once been Brutus. The exile did not speak. The thing on the throne did not rise. Instead, the air grew heavier, each heartbeat an anvil strike. He took one step forward. Chains dropped behind him. He was not alone in the room. The prison did not end at the walls. It lived inside the walls. The door slammed behind him, not swung, not blown, but pulled. Steel on stone, final. The exile didn't turn. The weight in the room had shifted. Brutus rose. The throne broke beneath him, bones cracking like dry branches. His silhouette expanded, armor fused to sinew, chainmail embedded in skin as if it had grown there. His back hunched under a lattice of riveted plates, each stamped with Orathan runes of judgment. His face, half hidden behind a melted iron mask, moved only when his jaw snapped open in a silent snarl. What remained of his humanity had rusted shut. The cudgel trembled in the exile's grip. But he didn't run. Instead, he stepped sideways, slow, deliberate, foot dragging a path through pooled blood. Brutus mirrored the motion, his chains dragging behind him, not bound but fused. His breath was a rasp that filled the hall, dry and dust-laden like parchment burning. A heartbeat. Brutus charged. The exile dove left, shoulder-grazing stone. The cudgel struck as Brutus passed, a glancing blow that cracked no armor, only made him stop, turn, study. Behind the brute, light flickered against the far wall, faint, green, like the tower's pulse. A mirror shard? No, perhaps a lens. Someone watching. The exile repositioned, breath controlled, body low. Brutus stalked him, movements brutal, but precise. This was no mindless husk. There was strategy in his feints, knowledge in his hesitation. He remembered pain. He remembered fear. And he wanted the exile to feel both. A lunge. The exile met it with wood to chin, not enough to drop the brute, but enough to stagger. The cudgel cracked. Splinters bit into the exile's palm. Brutus snarled, and this time the sound came, wet and dragging, like a chain pulled through meat. He slammed a fist into the ground. The floor buckled. The exile rolled. Behind him, the impact had opened a fault, spilling old bones, old chains. The air filled with iron dust and moans, not spoken by the living. Out of the fissure, something rose, a sigil stone, pulsing with green light, the same light as the distant tower. Brutus hesitated. That was the opening. The exile lunged, not toward Brutus, but the sigil. His hand closed on it, and for a moment the world pulsed. Chains cracked. Not Brutus's, His own. The shackle on his ankle snapped with a shriek that echoed louder than the brute's howl. The exile turned. Brutus came. This time, the cudgel didn't just strike. It drove into the seam where iron met skull. There was no roar, no scream, only silence as Brutus collapsed. Chains stilled. The shackle was gone, but the weight remained. Brutus lay broken, a hulk of ruin breathing his last into dust. The exile stood over the body, hands trembling, not from fear, but from memory. This was no victory. It was confirmation. Rayclast did not forgive. It punished. The sigil stone still pulsed, dimmer now, its light withdrawing like a tide. The exile touched it again, and this time pain answered. Images, flashes, not his own. Brutus, kneeling before cloaked priests, runes cut into his arms by candlelight. Iron poured across his back as choir boys wept, sin cloaked in ritual, strength born from agony. The exile staggered back, blinking hard. This place had not only made monsters, it believed in them. From the walls, something hissed. A valve turned. The far side of the chamber cracked open, revealing a narrow corridor lined with iron teeth. An escape route, perhaps, or a corridor for the condemned. He stepped through. Darkness pressed close, but with it came warmth, flesh warmth, not stone. The air throbbed. Somewhere ahead, a heartbeat, not his own. Then, voices, clear now, arguing. She said he'd come through. He's late. Late means dead. He's here. The exile emerged into a torchlit chamber, shaped like a chapel, though no god ever claimed it. Two figures stood at the edge of the light. One, wiry and grey-eyed, tattoos curling down her throat like ivy. Nessa. Her voice was a blade. The other, broad and stooped, scarred from ear to waist. Tarkly. His hand rested on a rusted cutlass. Not drawn, but not idle either. Nessa saw him and nodded once. Not a greeting, a confirmation. You lived, she said. Tarkly snorted. Brutus didn't. The exile said nothing. Tarkly pointed to the marks on his ankle. Oreath left its kiss, eh? You're not the first, but you might be the last that walks out of there standing. Nessa stepped forward. There's worse than Brutus waiting. You've opened the first lock, that's all. The exile turned to leave, but she caught his arm. Night Mother Sin watches, she whispered. When you reach the shore again, don't drink the red water. He frowned. She'll test you, she said, with memory, with need. Then she let go. Outside, the wind had shifted. The air no longer smelled of rust and rot, but of brine. The sea was near again. The prison did not fall. It opened. The path from the prison rose into a wind-chiseled bluff that clung to the edge of the sea. The exile moved uphill, his body leaden with bruises, his mind raw from visions. The cudgel, now cracked and dark with gore, rested across his shoulder like a yoke. Below, the coastline shimmered beneath moonlight, the tide dragging bones into whispers. He stopped at the ridge's peak. From there, the ruins of the prison looked like a skull, half buried in the earth, jaw broken open by time. The faint pulse of the sigil had ceased. But something else pulsed now. The tower, that sickly green beacon on the horizon, had grown brighter, larger. Its light throbbed in rhythm with his breath, as if calling something forth, or pulling something home. The shore is no longer safe, Tarkleigh had warned before they parted. It listens now. The exile descended, following a trail lined with ship timbers and claw marks. Night insects keened from the underbrush, their songs dissonant. Twice he stepped over carcasses, recent kills, torn open from the inside, faces stretched in final revelation. A storm was coming, but it wasn't in the sky. Halfway down the slope, he found a ruin. A stone arch, swallowed by ivy, marked the entrance. Symbols covered its face, sunken eyes, a mouthless scream. He stepped through, and the air changed. Cooler. Still. Inside, statues lined the hall, all headless, all bowed in the same direction, toward a central altar. There, beneath a veil of dust, lay a book bound in black kelp and wire. He touched it. Pain again. No images, just sensation. Loss. The book contained no pages, only a mirror inside, its surface dark and hungry. His reflection moved before he did. Its eyes bled salt. He slammed it shut. When he turned, one statue had moved. It now faced him. He backed out quickly, back into wind, back into sound. The sea was closer now. The road wound down to it. As he reached the next rise, the path forked. One trail inland, marked by charred totems of driftwood. The other followed the cliff's curve toward a cove lit by fire. Footsteps echoed behind him. He turned. Nothing. But the salt in the air smelled warm now, like blood. He chose the fire. The path split. The hunger followed. The fire crackled low, half hidden behind a stone ridge where the cliff met the sea. The exile crouched just beyond its light, watching. 3 figures huddled around it, not guards, not priests, survivors, ragged clothes, eyes hollow. One nursed a cracked bowl filled with something steaming. The others passed a bottle. Laughter came, jagged and brief, like someone remembering how. The exile stepped forward. All 3 turned, no weapons drawn, but one reached slowly for a stone, the other a rusted hook, the third a woman with oil-slick braids and a burn scar across her cheek, simply raised her hand. "You from the prison?" she asked. He nodded. She pointed to the brand on his forearm. "Oriathan?" He nodded again. She lowered her hand. "Then sit. Fire's fire." He did. They made room. The bowl was passed, smelled of roots and smoke. He drank. The taste brought tears. It wasn't the heat. It was the memory. He hadn't eaten since the wreck. The woman spoke again. "Name's Janice. That's Reef. That's Whale. You?" The exile hesitated. "I was called Elian." She smiled. "Sounds like a name someone gave you, not one you earned." He shrugged. Reef offered the bottle. "Drink. Forget." Elian drank. Whale leaned in. "You saw Brutus?" "He's dead." Whale nodded, eyes distant. He needed it. Some monsters wait to be freed. Others wait to be ended. The fire crackled louder. Janice pulled a charm from her pocket. A twisted chain link wrapped in seaweed. She tossed it into the flame. We name the dead so they don't follow. Reef added a tooth, whale, a sliver of bone. Elian hesitated, then reached for the broken shackle, still tied to his belt. He placed it in the fire. The flames rose green. For a moment, the light turned their shadows into giants, then faded. No one spoke. From the cliffs above, something howled. Low, long, wet. Not a wolf, not a man. Reef stood. It's hunting again. Janice nodded. We leave at first light. Whale looked at Elian. You coming? He stared into the fire. The shackle was gone. He nodded. The fire didn't warm him, but it lit the road. Dawn broke like a blade across the sky, thin, sharp, red along its edge. The campfire was ash. Janice, Reef, and Whale moved silently, packing what little they had into worn satchels and oilskins. Elian rose without a word. The path ahead was narrow, half erased by time, but it wound steadily toward the inland rise, where the tower's green pulse still glowed, faint in the dawn haze. The sea to their left was calm, too calm. They moved in single file. Elian walked last. Birds cried overhead, gulls or something darker. Once, Janice paused, sniffed the air, then nodded for them to quicken pace. Bloodwind, she murmured. Reef muttered a word in a tongue Elian did not know, but recognized from the book. A dead prayer. An hour passed. Then came the screech. Not close, but not far enough. The group stopped. The cliff path ahead collapsed into rubble, freshly torn. Something had passed through here recently, huge, dragging something heavy, long grooves in the earth, pieces of broken tusk. They backtracked, climbed a ledge, found another trail. Time stretched thin. The sun rose higher, but offered no warmth. At the ridge's crest, they stopped. Below, a basin choked in red mist, thick and low, hiding what waited. A ruined gate sat at the basin's far end, jagged metal, stone scorched black. Reef spat. This is where we split. Janice nodded. We take the cove. You, she turned to Elian, you're meant for that gate. He said nothing. She pressed something into his palm. A charm, iron, twisted into a spiral. For memory, not protection. You'll need it. He looked down. The charm felt warm. He turned toward the basin. The mist thickened with every step. Sound dulled. His breath came shallow. Lips salt stung. At the center of the mist, something stirred. It didn't attack. It watched. He did not falter. Each step forward scraped away something old. Doubt, name, forgiveness. He crossed the basin. The mist parted. Before him stood the gate. Above it, a new sigil. 3 circles, one bleeding into the next. Chains, heartbeat, tide. They had returned. They had changed. Elian stepped through. The tide withdrew in silence. In its wake, stones glittered wet and sharp, as though the ocean had birthed teeth. Elian followed Tarkly down a slip of shattered cliff into a cove painted by wrecks and fog. Wind moved in tight spirals through the broken ships, carrying voices that weren't voices, melodies stretched too thin, dissolving as they touched the ear. Here, the sea no longer sang. It mourned. Tarkley stopped at the water's edge, where barnacles had claimed the ribs of a capsized cutter. He pointed inland, toward a jagged split in the cliffside veiled in mist. That's the mouth, the hollow. We go down there to enter. Elian eyed the black fissure. You've been. Twice, Tarkley said. Lost more than I brought back. But Nessa swears she felt her dream again. Mervale is stirring. Elian knew the name, from broken tales, from whispers on the black beach. A woman who sang to the sea, and then sang to bones. They moved together now, steps slow, weapons ready but not drawn. A lull settled, sea hush, breath held. As they entered the hollow, the light dimmed. The stone walls bled water from unseen veins. Roots hung like ropes from the ceiling, slick with algae and something else. Music drifted from the dark. At first, Elian mistook it for wind, but it carried structure, refrain, pause, ache. Mervale was singing. Tarkley spat to the side. Don't answer. Don't echo it. The song reached through marrow. It knew loneliness. It knew hunger. It made those things sound beautiful. The tunnel split. Two paths, both downward. From one, light flickered. From the other, the music deepened. They chose the dark. As they descended, walls opened into chambered caverns, drowned in tide water. Lamps clung to rock faces, fungus-fed, glowing amber. Each footfall rippled through the shallow flood. Every echo returned, changed. Then, movement. Not from ahead, from below. Figures rose from the water. Not living, not dead. Drowned ones, skin slick with barnacles, hair long and drifting like seaweed, eyes hollow sockets filled with brine. They did not charge. They sang. Elian, the exile, gripped his blade tighter. We don't fight this. Tarkley's whisper came ragged. We wait. If they see the charm, too late. One of the drowned reached forward, not attacking, but touching the chain at a lion's wrist. It hissed. They recoiled. The path opened. A world beat past between them. Elian followed Tarkley deeper. The drowned sang behind them. The caverns bent downward in a spiral, their walls crusted with salt and silence. Every step pulled them deeper into a forgotten song. The water thickened, no longer clear. Streaks of oil shimmered on its surface, and the smell changed from sea to something older, like perfume, buried too long in graves. Tarkley halted at a stone ledge, where the tunnel widened into a bowl-shaped chamber. In its center stood a pillar, a totem of driftwood and bone, crowned with a woman's mask. The mouth was open. The eyes were not. Elian stepped forward, who had been nameless on the strand. Beneath the mask, offerings rotted. Sea glass, broken harps, a coral circlet stained red. Symbols were scrawled across the basin's floor in looping calligraphy that moved if you looked too long. She kept court here once, Tarkley murmured, before the song changed. A noise rose from the next passage, not melody this time, sobbing. It echoed through the stone as if it had always belonged there. Tarkly gestured. That way. She weeps before she sings. They entered a narrow corridor, so tight they passed sideways, their feet skimming knee-deep water. Shadows moved along the walls, untethered from any body. The sobbing stopped as they stepped into another chamber, this one circular, with a domed ceiling and a pool at its center. A figure sat beside it. Nessa, or something wearing her. Her hair was pearl white, and her dress clung like sea foam to skin too pale for life. Her eyes held depth, but not focus. She stared into the pool, fingers dragging lines through the water. Elian stopped. Nessa? She looked up and smiled. It was wrong. Not cruel. Yearning. Elian, she whispered. You came back. I waited. I sang. Tarkly moved to speak. She shrieked. The water trembled. From its center, a shape stirred. Not fish, not serpent. A mass of scale and silk, teeth like shells turned inside out. Merveil. The pool shattered upward. Elian shoved Nessa aside, or what was left of her. She dissolved into foam, laughing. Tarkly drew his cutlass. The Siren had risen. The creature that rose from the pool was a monument to sorrow. Merveil's form shimmered in fragments, half woman, half depth, skin woven from kelp and chitin, her face still hauntingly beautiful, though stretched by agony. Eyes once praised in poem and song, now reflected only the abyss. She didn't speak, she sang, and the cave obeyed. Stone trembled, water surged upward, spiraling into coils around her limbs. The ceiling dripped faster, as if the rock itself wept in sympathy. Elian staggered, mind buckling beneath the weight of the melody. Tarkly clutched his head, mouthing prayers to gods who did not answer. The song clawed through memory. Elian saw Oriath again, flames licking marble, his brother's execution, the crowd chanting guilt before truth, the court, the chains, the shame, the betrayal. No, he murmured, voice lost in the siren's aria, but the charm on his wrist pulsed once, faint and warm. He gripped it. His feet found stone again. Tarkly fell to one knee, gasping. Strike her, while she sings. She can't stop you then. Elian nodded, drawing the hooked blade he'd carried since the beach. It had tasted flesh, but never like this. He moved in arcs, low, quiet, mirroring the rhythm. The song faltered for a breath. He struck. The blade met her side, parted scale from muscle. Merveil screamed, not in pain, but in rage. The pool boiled, tentacles shot forth, dragging Tarkly across the floor. Elian lunged again, this time for the throat. Too slow. A coil of water struck him, lifting him off his feet and slamming him against the stone. Darkness edged his vision, but the charm still glowed. He tore it from his wrist and flung it toward her. The iron spiral struck Merveil's chest and burned. She shrieked. Her song broke into choking sobs. Water collapsed. The pool sank, and she with it. Elian rose slowly, chest aching. Tarkly coughed nearby, bruised but alive. The chamber stilled. Only silence remained. The pool drained slowly, as if reluctant to relinquish its keeper. Merveil's form dissolved beneath the surface, not vanishing, but becoming part of the cave once more. Her sobs echoed through stone as fading ripples. Elian leaned against the cavern wall, breath shallow. Blood ran down his temple, salt stung. Tarkli pushed himself upright, wincing with each motion. "She's gone?" he asked, voice like cracked wood. "No," Elian murmured. "She waits differently now." The walls around them no longer pulsed. The air was colder, but clearer. The song had stopped, and in its absence, a different sound emerged, lapping water from tunnels unseen, voices rising from the shore. They climbed a slope flanking the chamber, through a crevice half swallowed by coral and bone. At the top, the cave opened to a high ledge above the cove. The sea stretched below, grey and wide, sunlight glinting across its edge. Nessa stood at the cliff's edge, whole, human, watching. She turned when they approached, her eyes rimmed with salt, but clear. The dream lifted. The tide broke. She stepped forward and placed a hand on Elian's chest. "You did it." He didn't reply. Her voice lingered inside us, she said. She was sorrow, she was hunger, but not evil. Tarkli scoffed. "That thing killed hundreds. She was broken long before the hunger came," Nessa answered, "like this coast." Below, villagers emerged from shelters and wrecks. They looked upward, not with fear, but with awe. Some sang, not Merveil's song, a new one of thanks. Elian looked to the sea. The waves rolled differently now, not in tension, but rhythm. The tide had changed. He touched the iron spiral charm where it lay against his chest. It was cold. It had done its work. The river cut through the valley like a wound reopened. Red sand shifted beneath Elian's boots as he followed its slow pulse inland. The sky was a scab of cloudless blue, the sun a constant lash across the nape. Around him, the ruins of ancient paths spiraled into dunes and silence. As the earth vibrated underfoot and a red glow pulsed beyond the valley, Elian remembered the words from Tarkli, spoken over last night's fire. "If you feel the sand start to hum, find Eramir's tower. The old fool sees things coming before the gods do." That was where he would go. Nothing here had breath, but everything remembered. He paused at a crumbling arch, its stonework carved with vile script, angular, recursive, not meant to be read aloud. Beneath it, the remains of a bridge reached across the gorge like a broken ribcage. Beyond, the silhouette of a spire, half swallowed by sand. That was Eramir's place. The last ranger, they called him, or the first heretic, depending who told the tale. A low cry echoed from the east, not beast. Horn, a signal. Elian moved faster. He reached the spire as the sun reached its zenith. The tower leaned against a cliff wall, its top shattered, its door sealed by vines burned black. He knocked once with the hilt of his blade. The door answered with a hiss. It opened. Inside, the air smelled of old bark and oil. Scrolls littered the floor. Charcoal maps of ruined cities spiraled across tables. And there, beneath a tapestry of sun-bleached skins, sat Eramir, thin, hooded. His eyes gleamed with sharp recognition. "You carry sand on your soul," Eramir said, "the kind that burns." "I come for the oversoul," Elian answered. The seal's cracking. Eramir rose. It cracked before you spoke. Come, I'll show you what your coming means. They climbed a ladder twisted from bone and bronze, rising into the topmost chamber. There, a glassless window opened to the canyon below. The earth quivered, and from beneath a sheet of obsidian at the river's heart, red light pulsed, slow, deliberate. The veil oversoul stirred. Eramir pressed a shard of that same obsidian into Elian's palm. It hummed. Strike with this, only this. Anything else feeds it. Outside, the sand began to lift in waves, a storm building from nowhere. The sandstorm rose with purpose, not fury. Each grain moved as if guided by memory, seeking the cracks in armor, the breath between thoughts. Elian wrapped his face in a strip of scorched linen, eyes narrowed against the swirling red. Eramir remained at the spire's mouth, his silhouette folding into the stone. There is no map for what waits, he said, voice lost in the wind. Only relics. Elian descended into the gorge, obsidian shard tucked into his belt, the rest of him stripped of excess, no iron, no chains, only what would not feed the oversoul. The river had dried here. In its place, blackened stones ran like veins across the sand. He followed them, feet scuffing ancient glyphs, half buried in silt. Midway through the basin, the wind stilled. Too sudden. He paused. Around him, the world whispered. Not words. Vibrations. Harmonics pressed into bone. His knees nearly buckled. This was not fear. It was recognition. He stepped forward. The stone beneath his foot gave way, not with a fall, but with a yielding, like skin under pressure. The ground opened. He dropped into shadow and landed in a chamber lit by red glass veins running through the walls. The air smelled of copper and something older. Blood evaporated 1,000 years ago, still clinging to the memory of heat. A figure stood at the far end, not oversoul, a guardian. Its body was crafted from armor and dust, its face a helm without eyes. It did not move. It waited. Elian drew the shard. The guardian stepped forward, faster than he expected. Its first strike came not with steel, but with song, an ultrasonic pulse that cracked the wall behind him and brought blood to his ears. He ducked low, rolled right, flung the shard. It struck the wall and embedded harmlessly. The guardian turned. He understood then, not a weapon, a key. He dove for the shard, rolled beneath the second strike, and drove it into the groove between the guardian's ribs. Light, sound, silence. The figure shuddered, then crumbled into black ash. The chamber door groaned open. The path to the Oversoul lay beyond. The corridor behind the fallen guardian narrowed, its walls narrowing, until Elion had to turn his shoulders to pass. Obsidian veins pulsed gently along the surface, like arteries through ancient stone. His fingers brushed them as he passed, and they pulsed in reply. They remembered him, not as Elion, as something older, the chain-worn soul that had once walked this place in another life, or perhaps in a prophecy uttered before breath was gifted to man. The passage ended in a vault, vast, hollowed from earth and silence. At its center, half buried beneath collapsed pillars, lay the Vaal Oversoul. It was not alive. Not yet. The thing's body lay slumped, part machine, part monument. Its limbs were thick as tree trunks, forged from blackened metal and ancient bone. Its chest bore a crack, glowing faintly with the same red that lit the stone. Its head was a helmed dome, its mouth a sealed line, silent. He approached slowly. The obsidian shard in his palm vibrated again. The moment he stepped onto the central dais, the vault responded. First, a low rumble, then a breath, then awakening. The Oversoul's eye opened. Not a socket, not flesh, a glyph. A single rune ignited with red fire. It rose. Stone buckled under its weight. Pillars cracked. Elion ran, not away, but toward it, ducking past a swing that crushed the platform behind him. The shard pulsed violently. He leapt, drove it into the crack at the Oversoul's chest. The impact threw him back. The crack widened. The Oversoul howled, a sound without voice, a siren of ages. It swung again, slower now, sparks trailing each motion. He dove beneath the swing, rolled to its flank, climbed its shoulder. Each movement broke ancient rust, sent chunks of time crashing to the vault floor. He reached the crack again, this time, both hands on the shard. He pushed. The rune eye blinked, flickered, then flared. The Oversoul screamed. Light surged outward. A wave of red obliterated the dais. And then stillness. Elion awoke, buried in dust. The shard shattered beside him. The Oversoul lay still, dead, but not empty. The ancient seal was broken. What it held did not die. It waited. The vault groaned beneath him. Dust billowed with each breath Elion forced into his lungs. The Oversoul's corpse had gone still, but the chamber pulsed now, not with power, but with consequence. Something beneath the seal had stirred. He rose, legs trembling, and approached what remained. The shard lay in pieces, dull and harmless. The crack in the Oversoul's chest had deepened. Through it, a tunnel yawned downward, lined with black stone, slick with new warmth. The wound led deeper than stone. He turned from it. The chamber behind him was no longer sealed. Light pierced the far arch, where the sandstorm had cleared, sun pouring down a stairwell, once hidden by dust. As he ascended, the shift became more apparent. The gorge above no longer howled. Instead, it hummed. He emerged at the cliff's edge to find Eramir waiting, a fresh scroll in hand. "You killed it," Eramir said. "No," he answered. "I opened it." Eramir frowned. "Then we move faster." The wind was hot now, not dry but damp, carrying scents that didn't belong, sulfur, decay, metal not yet forged. Birds circled far off, fleeing inland. "What did it seal?" Elion asked. "The memory of sin," Eramir said. "Not guilt. Memory. The kind you bury so deep it grows teeth." They stood in silence, the gorge below now crackling faintly. Red light pulsed again from the opening far below. Chains, tide, heartbeat. The motifs repeated, slightly changed. The chains no longer bound. They dragged. The tide no longer swept. It consumed. The heartbeat no longer warned. It called. Eramir pressed a medallion into a lion's hand, etched obsidian with a broken rune. "Take this," the ranger said, "to Sarn. There are those who still think the gods sleep. If the seal is broken here, the next wound will open in Sarn," Eramir said, voice low. "Dominus gathers the faithful. He believes the old gods will return, but not all awakenings bring salvation." Elien felt the medallion's weight grow heavy in his palm, a promise or a warning he could not tell. "If you would see the world live," Eramir finished, "go now, before the city remembers what it was promised." Elien turned east, the sun setting behind him, the path clear. Sarn loomed like a dream half-remembered and twisted in waking. Its gates, once white marble and gold-filmed iron, now hung crooked and dead, one sunk deep into the earth, like it had tried to crawl away from its city. The walls bore scorch lines. Statues were headless, their necks blackened. Elien stood before it. The medallion Eramir had pressed into his palm, cold against his chest. Smoke curled from somewhere deep inside. It smelled of sweet incense gone sour. He stepped through the gate. Inside, silence. No birds. No wind. Only the echo of boots on dust-thick stone. Marble halls, once polished by generations of worship and rule, were now cracked. Veins of black mold traced the floor like script written by rot. On one wall, someone had painted in blood, "Innocence was never alone." He paused, touched it, still tacky. Recent. Ahead, voices rose, chanting, not in harmony, but in conflict. Each voice pitched slightly off from the next, forming a wave of dissonance that clawed at the mind. He followed it. Past shattered pews, beneath frescoes melted by fire. In the heart of the cathedral, he found the source. Piety. She stood on a platform of broken thrones, black-robed, her face smeared with ash and gold. Her arms were outstretched above a man strapped to a table. Wires ran from his limbs into glowing orbs suspended in cages of bone. Dominus, not yet dead, not yet God. Elien moved to speak, but the hymn stopped him. Piety's voice surged above the rest. "Elion," she said, not shouted, whispered, "I was promised you'd come." He drew his blade, and she smiled. "This was always your throne to break." The broken cathedral trembled, not from impact, but from resonance. Piety's words had seeded something into the bones of the city. Each cracked pillar and crumbling frieze now hummed with promise, as if the ruins hungered to rise again under her voice. Elien stepped forward. The air here was thick with incense and voltage. The orbs feeding on Dominus's life pulsed like heartbeats made of light. Piety turned slowly, her robes brushing against the altar's steps. Her eyes gleamed not with madness, but with certainty. "You've seen the Oversoul," she said. "You've touched what lies beneath the veil. You know the gods we inherited were never ours." Elien said nothing. She continued, walking along the broken platform, each step measured. "Dominus tried to purify Oriath, but you and I, we see the flaw in purity. It rots the moment it is claimed." She paused at the edge of the altar. The chains binding Dominus glowed now, humming louder than the choir had. "Why strap him down if you want him dead?" Elien asked. Piety's smile didn't reach her eyes. Because death is a threshold, and we are architects of doors. She raised a hand. The runes etched along the orbs began to spiral. Light flickered red, then black. Dominus groaned, his breath no longer human, more a rattle drawn through metal lungs. Elion moved. A surge of energy struck him mid-step, flinging him into a shattered pew. The wood split beneath him, and the ash of old sermons stained his face. Still tethered to flesh, Piety said softly, "You'll break it soon." He rose slowly, blood trickling down his jaw. "This isn't ascension," he said. "It's infection." She blinked. A moment of stillness. Then the light in the orbs pulsed brighter. The chains melted. Dominus opened his eyes. They were not his own. Dominus did not rise. He unfurled. His limbs, once lean with age and command, now extended like roots, torn through stone. Metal and sinew interwove, stretching with terrible fluidity. The table split beneath him, not from weight, but from refusal. No throne would hold him now. He hovered. Orbs of light swarmed to his back and melted into wing-like appendages, formed of lattice and pain. His voice was gone, replaced by a sound like stone grinding on prayer, the language of cathedrals breaking. Piety fell to her knees, arms lifted. "Witness," she breathed. Elion ran. Not away, around. He vaulted over debris, angling for the remnants of the sanctuary's inner dais. There, a fractured statue of Innocence still stood, its golden mask cracked, one hand pointing skyward. Beneath it, etched into the base, a glyph flared with old light, half covered by soot. He pressed his hand to it. It recognized him. A pulse surged through his arm, painful, clarifying. The city had once been holy, before belief made it cruel. Dominus turned, not with speed, with inevitability. A beam of corrupted light surged from his palms. Elion ducked. The blast sheared through the wall behind him, revealing daylight, and beyond it, not sky, but black rain. It was beginning. He charged. Dominus struck again. Elion rolled, came up beneath the massive arm, drove his blade into the hollow where the wing joined the back. It caught. Dominus shrieked, no longer language, just grief, pure and echoing. The orbs around him shattered, and the wings fell limp. Elion climbed, hand over hand, into the ribs of the monstrosity. He plunged the blade into the base of the neck. Black ichor sprayed across the altar. Dominus convulsed, then collapsed, metal groaning, prayers gasping their last into the dust. Piety did not move. The cathedral fell silent, but the rain did not stop. Rain leaked through the cracked cathedral ceiling, turning the marble aisles into black rivers. Elion knelt by the altar, chest heaving, his hands coated in the stinging fluid that passed for Dominus's blood. It hissed where it touched stone, seeping into the cracks, as if searching for more to consume. Behind him, Piety wept. Not from grief, from awe. He was only the vessel, she whispered, tracing the blood with her fingers. We are all vessels. Elion stood, blade slick with that tar-thick essence. You built your god from rot. She looked up, face streaked with tears and rain. No, we uncovered him. You think Oriath made Dominus? No, the cataclysm was always inside him. We just gave it voice. She laughed, a soft, broken sound. Then she walked into the rain. Elian didn't follow. The storm was unnatural. Each drop hit like ash. It didn't soak. It marked. Burned. Marked. He turned to the fallen thrones behind the altar. Statues once stood here. Icons of innocence, of justice, of faith. All gone. Only the cracked pedestals remained, their names etched in fading gold. He found one that hadn't fallen, a figure half sunk in the rubble. Eyes blindfolded, scales in one hand, sword in the other. The nameplate was gone. He reached out. The statue crumbled beneath his touch, collapsing into dust and bone. Outside, lightning flashed, black against grey. The city had shifted, not just in ruin, in tone, from silence to murmuring. He could hear the echoes now. Footsteps, whispers, prayers warped by repetition. The cataclysm wasn't coming. It had started. He descended from the cathedral, blade low. Black rain fell harder. The marble roads ran with memory. Highgate sat buried in dusk, a half-sunken city at the throat of the mountain. Smoke drifted in loose spirals from its shattered gatehouse, not rising, but curling inward, drawn toward the pit at the city's core. From that fissure came no sound, not wind, not whisper, only pressure. The exile arrived at dawn, though no light reached him. The sky above the ridge was thick with storm, casting the entire valley into muted reds and violet haze. Sulphur clung to the air. Beneath his boots, the stone trembled faintly, in rhythm with something not alive, but not dead. Sin awaited near the breach. He wore no cloak this time. Only threads of shadow and white ash marked his frame, like a god once wrapped in myth, now unmasked. His face was young and old at once, the eyes both flame and mirror. "Elian," Sin said, voice even, "you've cracked the world open." Elian looked past him to the chasm that cut the city in two. Flesh lined its walls, pulsing as if the mountain had been hollowed and filled with a living thing. From its depths, a heartbeat sounded. Elian said nothing. Sin gestured to the edge. Malachi waits. They descended together. The path into the mountain was not carved. It had grown. Veins of scarlet light ran through the rock, warm to the touch. Bones jutted from the walls like teeth half chewed. At times, the floor shivered beneath their steps, sinking with the pulse. "This is not just a place," Sin said. "It's a memory given form. Malachi fed it dreams. Now it dreams back." They passed broken machinery, shards of veil glyphs, old rituals rendered in sinew and skin. Statues lined the descent, figures of weeping scholars, hollow-eyed kings. At the lowest landing, a door pulsed, not built, born. Sin placed his hand to it. The door sighed and opened. A corridor of meat and ruin greeted them, the air thick with iron and grief. "We speak one more truth," Sin whispered, "then we bleed." The corridor writhed. It did not move with speed, but with breath. Each ripple along the walls timed to the heartbeat that now thundered through Elian's chest. The air was thick, not just with sulphur, but with memory, and each step forward stirred it. Whispers followed him, not from Sin, who moved ahead without pause, but from the stone flesh around them. The whispers weren't words. They were impressions, shame, hunger, jubilation twisted into sound. Echoes of those who had come here believing the end was glory. Elyon passed a chamber filled with bones arranged in spirals, each skull bearing a different expression: joy, agony, awe. They weren't artifacts, they were altar. At the center stood a throne, not grand, not elevated, sunken. He did not sit. They continued. The path dipped downward again, and the flesh grew denser. Walls slick with translucent mucus that reflected their faces in fragments. The red glow dimmed, and a new sound joined the heartbeat, the rattle of chains, but not like Brutus's. These did not bind. They restrained nothing. They sang. Sin paused before a great chamber. Here. Elyon stepped beside him. The chamber opened like a wound. Its roof arched high above, lost in haze. The floor was slick, soft, alive. At its center, impaled by a column of bone, hung a body, not dead, not whole. Its veins glowed like molten silver, its mouth stitched shut by threads of scripture. Malachi. Sin stepped forward and bowed his head. I do not mourn you, brother, he said, but I mourn what you believed. The stitched mouth trembled, then broke. Malachi opened his eyes. The chamber screamed. Elyon stumbled, one hand to his temple. Sin did not move. The threads fell from Malachi's mouth like dead spiders. You carry her scent, Malachi said. His voice was a vibration. Sin's last gift. Elyon stepped forward. No, he answered. Her last mistake. The heartbeat quickened. The room convulsed. Chains snapped. Malachi descended not by will, but by hunger. The chains that held him had not been shackles. They were veins. Their rupture spilled more than blood. Memories poured out in viscous tides. Cities drowned in song. Forests that wept red leaves. Mothers who named their children after dying stars. Reclassed forgotten dreams bled across the chamber floor. Sin stepped back. This is yours, he whispered. Malachi's feet touched the ground. The skin around him boiled, reforming with each breath. Flesh sculpted itself into armor, grown not worn. His heart pulsed visibly through his chest, its rhythm too slow, too deep. War drums stretched into eons. Elyon circled. The sword he carried flickered with borrowed light. It was not enough. Malachi turned to him. You still believe in heroes? He asked. His voice echoed through marrow. I believed in saviors once. I became the ruin they feared. He lunged. The floor heaved beneath Elyon's feet, throwing him into a wall of slick stone. He rolled aside as Malachi's strike cratered the chamber, tendrils of bone bursting upward like teeth. Elyon slashed at them, carving a path. Sin flanked wide, whispering verses in a dead tongue. Glyphs formed in the air around Malachi, then shattered, useless. Elyon charged again, aiming low beneath the ribs. His blade struck flesh, but the wound sealed even as he drove deeper. Malachi laughed. You are not fighting a man, he said. You are fighting consequence. Elyon fell back, then threw the blade. It stuck in Malachi's shoulder. The wound hissed. Steam rose. Sin reached to Elyon's chest. and touched the obsidian medallion Eramir had given him. It flared. Malachi staggered. Elion rushed forward, bare-handed, seized the hilt, and twisted. The glyphs flared again. The heartbeat stuttered. Malachi screamed, a sound that peeled skin from air. He collapsed. The floor surged upward to swallow him. And then, stillness. Sin exhaled. The chamber exhaled. What remained of Malachi sank into the floor's pulsing flesh, as if the mountain itself reabsorbed the thing it once dared call God. The stone around them ceased to tremble. The veins dimmed. No silence followed. Only a tired, endless hum. A world without his weight felt foreign, unbalanced. Sin stepped forward, kneeling by the place where the wound had closed. "Elion," he said softly, "you have undone a god's ambition." The exile said nothing. His body was slick with blood and ruin, and the obsidian medallion on his chest had cracked down its center. The glyphs etched into it no longer pulsed. Sin stood. Malachi believed creation would heal through perfection, he continued, but the world is not healed by being rewritten. It survives by enduring its fracture. They walked back through the corridor together. The walls were still soft, but they no longer whispered. The spiral path that had once descended into nightmare now lifted them towards something new, a stillness that did not feel like peace, but release. When they emerged at the rim of Highgate, the sun was breaking through clouds for the first time in days. It didn't feel right. It felt exposed. The smoke was gone. Villagers gathered near the ruined well, not praying, not celebrating, just watching, listening, as if waiting for something to rise from the pit behind them. Sin paused. "Elion," he said, "this stillness will not last. The gods are not dead. They've only been reminded they can bleed." Elion touched the cracked medallion. "What happens now?" Sin did not smile. Now they look for a new vessel. Far in the distance, the bells of Oriath rang. Wrong, warped, calling. Oriath's skyline no longer wore its crown of bells. Where once spires reached for heaven, now the horizon burned. Towers lay cracked like bones, and from their ruins rose a steady plume of ash, not grey, but white, like marrow turned to smoke. The city had not fallen. It had been emptied. Elion arrived by boat, the dock half submerged in red tide. No crew waited, only silence and scorch marks where sentinels once stood. The sea behind him whispered with regret. He did not look back. The square ahead bore no signs of siege, no barricades, just a trail of footprints sunk into powdered marble, leading deeper toward the temple. He followed. Beneath the ruined arch of the grand basilica, the bells tolled. Not by hand, by hunger. Their peals were slow, warped, as though struck by unseen teeth. The chimes echoed not joy or mourning, but ache. He passed through the nave. Pews were overturned, not in panic, but as if something vast had slouched through them. On the walls, murals of innocence and sin bled gold paint. The central altar had been split, a cleft running through its core like a judgment rendered by gods tired of pretending. And there, at the altar's foot, stood Innocence, no longer radiant. He was stripped, his robes torn, face bloodied and bare. He looked smaller than before, as though faith had been carved from his bones. "Elian," he said, voice brittle, "you came." The exile approached slowly. Kitava rose. Innocence whispered. He was starved. Then he was fed. Elian glanced around. "There's nothing left," he said. "Not yet," Innocence replied, eyes hollow. "He fed on me first. The god of innocence devoured by the god of need." A tremor rolled through the temple. Outside, the bells screamed. The tremor did not end. It deepened. Stone groaned beneath the basilica, as if the city's foundations had begun to breathe. Ash spilled from the broken dome above, swirling like snow caught in an unseen tide. Elion stepped back from Innocence, gaze shifting to the widening cracks underfoot. Innocence clutched his chest. "He feeds on faith," the fallen god rasped, "on the echoes of prayer, every cry for salvation, every whisper of doubt. It draws him." A roar answered, distant, guttural, vast. Elion turned toward it. Through the crumbled vestibule, down the shattered causeway, the harbor boiled. Ships once moored in orderly rows now leaned like toppled gravestones. At their center, rising from the red tide, came Kitava. The god's form was neither man nor beast. It was hunger incarnate. Flesh looped over bone in grotesque spirals. Jaws split sideways and down, revealing rows of teeth like cathedral spires. Eyes blinked vertically, never at rest. His arms were too long, dragging through surf that turned crimson where he passed. Ash fell heavier now, and atop the creature's shoulders, dripping blood, twisted with gold, hung the half-eaten sigil of Innocence's son. Kitava roared again. Oriath screamed in return. Elian drew the blade he no longer trusted and turned to Innocence. "Can you stand?" The god nodded barely. "He's not yet full. You can wound him." "I can't kill him." Innocence placed a hand on Elian's shoulder. "No, but you can make him bleed long enough for morning to rise." Outside, Kitava lunged through the harbor wall. Water surged. Stone shattered. The bells rang without order, without rhythm, collapsing into discord. Elian ran toward the shore, toward the god that starved. The bells were not warnings. They were teeth. The harbor was no longer a place. It was a wound. Kitava moved through it like memory through blood, slow and all-consuming. His limbs dragged towers down as if they were cobwebs. Every step sent cracks racing through the streets. His mouth split wider, revealing new layers of hunger, tongues of ash, teeth forged from cathedral bells, eyes filled with sermons long silenced. Elian stood at the lip of the quay, the fractured city at his back, the red tide lapping at his boots. Behind him, Innocence leaned against a broken obelisk, face pale, gold blood drying in cracked lines across his skin. "Now," he whispered. Elian stepped forward. Kitava saw him. The god paused, then bent, lowered his maw, spoke, not in voice, but vibration. "You have tasted purpose. Now taste emptiness." The words struck Elian's ribs like spears of fog. He faltered, breath stolen, vision dimming. He forced a step, another. Each pace echoed with chants once whispered in Oriath's temples. The gods were not born of faith. They were fed by it. He had learned that truth too late. Kitava lunged. Elyon rolled beneath the swing of a limb, thicker than a cathedral beam. Stone exploded around him. He rose, sprinting toward the shrine at the harbor's heart. A statue of the first martyr, arms raised to the heavens, now shrouded in black ash. From the broken plinth, he drew the last relic, a spear of obsidian rimmed with scripture. Not forged, gifted. Innocence raised his hand weakly. "Strike not the heart," he said. "Strike the hunger." Elyon nodded once. Kitava roared. The sea caught fire. Elyon charged. The harbour burned without flame. Fire did not roar. It smouldered, thick and black, as if the sea itself bled despair. Elyon ran through the smoke, the obsidian spear gripped like a prayer too sharp to speak aloud. Kitava reared, his vast form blotting out the sun. His belly churned with spectral faces, remnants of those he had devoured, each mouth open in silent chorus. Temples slid from his back like unwanted skin. Bells tumbled from his shoulders, ringing as they fell, but never landing whole. The spear pulsed in Elyon's hands. Each step closed the space between man and God, though distance had ceased to mean anything. Kitava moved not in speed, but in scale. One breath from the creature sucked smoke from the sky. One blink erased horizon. Elyon reached the base of the beast's chest, where the god's ribs parted not to shelter heart, but to house mouths. Rows of them, gnashing, ravenous. He leapt. The spear struck flesh. No cry, no blood. But something shifted. Kitava faltered. The mouths turned inward, biting at themselves. Ash flowed not from the sky now, but from Kitava. His back hunched. A spire cracked. His scream bent the world. Elyon held tight, twisted the spear. Light surged. Not golden, not holy, scarlet. A memory of the cataclysm, reborn in one final defiance. Kitava reeled, arms flailing. Towers broke. Waves rose. Elyon was thrown. He landed beside the broken obelisk. Innocence reached for him. They both watched as Kitava collapsed, not defeated, but slowed, wounded, forced to kneel. The god did not die, but he hungered no longer. Dawn crept over Oriath's ruins, the first pale light in weeks. Elyon did not rise. He held the spear, its glow gone. Only warmth remained. The harbour no longer screamed. Kitava's frame lay hunched against the ruined seawall, vast and silent, like a mountain ashamed of its own birth. From his mouth, ash drifted, not thick, not choking, just steady, a soft snowfall of ruin that covered the broken spires, the shattered streets, the nameless graves. No cries of joy rose from Oriath. No crowds emerged from hiding. Only the wind moved, slow and uncertain, brushing past ruined banners and crumbling sanctuaries. The city did not rebuild. It breathed. On the high steps of the basilica, the exile sat alone, the extinguished sceptre of innocence in his hands. Its gold finish was gone. No gem adorned its crown. The wood was cracked, the tip blackened, but warm. Unbearably warm, as if a heartbeat still echoed within its core. Sin approached, his presence barely stirring dust. You gave them silence, he said. The exile did not look up. They prayed to hunger, he murmured. Now they must learn to live without appetite. Sin gazed toward the horizon, where dawn bled into the sea, red-orange and wide. A world without gods, he said, still breeds monsters. The exile stood, then let it breed. He left the scepter on the steps, turned, walked inland. The ash did not follow, the dawn did.